Inspires Me, a show about wellness, amazing people, and information to inspire you to take charge of your life and your health. The sports doctor is in. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist, to Mike Inspires Me podcast. Dr. Bob, welcome.
Hey, it's great to be here with you. You're an inspiration,
Thank
and
you.
it's great to join you on your show. It was great meeting you at the induction for the National Fitness Hall of Fame, Mike. Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my gosh, congratulations once again for being inducted into the hall. What an honor.
Yes, what a big deal. I've been to their affairs over the years, and I've known many of the people who were involved, but being there, meeting some of the legends, and hearing some of the stories, and being a part of this whole being the first podiatrist, et cetera, et cetera. So, and there was just one great person after another that I met. You were one of them.
Oh, thank you.
In a myriad
Yes.
of areas. So, like with you, I said, hey, I probably got myself another 20 radio guests.
Same here with podcasts. Yep, same thing.
I hear you.
Well, hey, you beat my idol there, Gilad, onto the show, so that says something, huh?
Right. Tell the guy to answer his emails. I remember Gilad's show growing up, and he sure doesn't look. I mean, the guy is in incredible condition.
Isn't he?
How old is he?
I'm guessing. No, but he'll probably kill me. I'm guessing he's in his early to mid 60s by now.
Yes, at least.
Yeah.
And I remember him, and again, one of the great pioneers, and of course the great story with him is everybody would say, how'd you get that gig? You know, being in Hawaii, working out on the sand.
With beautiful women.
By the ocean, hard to beat it. Legends like Jack LaLanne, my sports medicine mentor, Bob Guida, who has had influence in half the joint. As a matter of fact, one of our fellow inductees, Lance Dreyer, the great bodybuilding champion, knows Bob longer than me. And knew him as a teenager. He met him to become what Bob Guida called the man with the largest arms of anybody in the country. So it was very, very exciting. It really, really was an honor.
Yeah.
And I used to say with some of the great athletes that I've had pictures of and slides, I tell McEnroe, I'm going to be showing slides of you for the next 40 years, So that kind of memories. And John Figarelli, again.
Yeah. Oh, my
his
gosh.
Family
the work.
kept this going.
Yeah.
And who got the award for the Lifetime Achievement?
I think, Gilad got one for his show. Did Joe Lupo win an award? Was Joe Lupo?
Yes.
The boxer?
Joe Lupo.
Yep. His family.
Other legends. So, the idea that I could be included in something like this is, really, really was an honor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly, as I got to learn about the work you've done, it's amazing. And, being a podiatrist, that was part of what I wanted to talk about today, because my show, like yours, talks about wellness in general, but it's an often, I imagine, you know this, overlooked area, the feet.
Well, you're right. Although things have changed a lot over the decades, but I don't care what you're talking about.
Right.
An area of fitness, whether it's the seniors who want to walk every day, whether it's the people who are going to the gym consistently, whether they're parents of good athletes, et cetera, the foots are involved. Our foundation are our feet. And many times we've seen, now we're all about paying big attention to strengthening the feet and ankles. It's one of the most popular articles on my website, sportsdoctorradio.com, Mike. If people go to newspaper articles, it's called Women and High Heels, Accepting the Challenge.
Yeah.
So it's all about strengthening the feet and ankles. And also, hey, are you in the best shoe for you? What requirements are important? So all aspects of wellness include these kinds of topics, and 75% of the population has some foot problem or another.
Right.
So, the song, Mike, you ready?
Yep.
The song, the foot bones connected to the ankle bones, connected to it's where it's at. This is very important for you and your audience.
Right.
I used to make fun of Dr. Scholes, years ago with their corn pads and all their stuff. And their commercials today where they talk about that your feet, knee, and back problems might be related and orthotics to be indicated is a tremendous. I gotta laugh. They're doing a great job. So when we're talking about the 50% of the population, Mike, are not fit properly.
Well, I can imagine. I'm a big walker and I hike a lot. In fact, we'll talk later when we meet again. I do a show called Hike with Mike, and you can imagine. I'm sure you well know hiking and all the amount of stress.
Athletic.
Yeah.
Hiking is athletic. It's also very unstable.
Right.
So, for example, people can't be hiking in running shoes or walking shoes, which were made for one foot behind the other. But when you're a hiker,
flip flops.
Exactly. So when you're a hiker, also many times we'll see that the ankle sprains and other kinds of problems can be consistent, and you're an athlete.
Right.
So every person that's listening to your podcast and involved in the whole hiker world.
Right.
This is the 2 chapters in my book, #Hey Sports Parents, for any kid at any level in any sport, including our contemporaries. The 2 essential exercises to include rubber band strengthening of the feet and ankles for all you hikers.
Yeah.
And work your balance.
So what do you mean?
Stability.
So like a balance board type thing?
Bingo. The BOSU.
Yep.
The balancing, I could go back 40 years with Bob Guida and show slides of the Chicago Bears balancing on mini trams. And the point was a very simple one. We call it instability training.
Yeah.
And whether we're talking about a 12-year-old soccer player or we're talking about your 85-year-old grandmother, balance is a major. So those are the 2 exercise concepts. I'm not saying it replaces everything else everybody does.
Right.
But sometimes, again, because you made a very important point, Mike, right at the beginning, you said, out of sight, out of mind. Feet, it's not a problem. Attention.
I think, especially around shoes. I mean, I even myself, I did all this walk. I was buying the cheapest shoes I could because I was going through so many, but I started to feel it after a while when I did.
Big mistake.
I know.
The last place you want to scrimp. And it's interesting. Here's a point about shoes. I had a colleague 20 years ago. He was part of a book. It was called The Best Running Shoe. And the picture on front was a collage of about 30 shoes. And that's the point. There is no best shoe for any of us. But if you even think about the fact that, again, half of the population isn't even fit properly. So we tell people, go to a good walking shoe store, running shoe store, even if you're not necessarily a runner, and get measured properly and get into the right type of shoe. And then you can start getting cute as far as mixing other things.
Sure.
But if every one of your hikers started strengthening their feet and ankles with rubber bands, then I would tell you that's my pearl for you guys from the sports doctor.
So when you mean with rubber bands, you get one of those those bands that you kind of hold on to with your hands or whatever, and you're doing flexion motion with your feet. Okay.
Yes. The foot and ankle is like a multi-directional gyroscope.
Yeah.
And the rubber band's versatility to be able to work all of those areas. There is some technique. There is technique involved, so we tell people who don't know how to spell the word rubber band, see a physical therapist and get some instruction on how to do this. When I first met Bob Guida, he was going to inner tube companies in the late 70s. Nobody had them. One of our big mistakes, man, was not getting involved.
Could have jumped in on that. Yeah, should have told that Forbes Riley, too.
Forbes Riley, Mike. We've been on each other's radio shows over the past 10 years, on and off.
Oh my gosh.
Forbes, this incredible lady who has sold $2.5 billion worth of products.
I know.
And a lot of them fitness with Jake. She was the juicer with Jack LaLanne, and I've never met the woman. First thing she said to me was, "Hey, my foot hurt." You know, and she said, we had a few laughs. But her famous spin gym, that ingenious piece of equipment that is so versatile, is something that we talked about years ago on the Sports Doctor, and so it was a really a pleasure, to see her. Now, if in your audience you have all sorts of parents of young athletes, it's such a big deal today. And it's one of the biggest reasons I wrote the book, co-authored the book, #HeySportsParents, with Hall of Fame volleyballer Mike Sharkey Zartman.
Oh, gosh.
Sharkey was a Team USA volleyball player. She's a radio host with Healthy Life Radio, kinesiology professor, and the epidemic of overuse youth sports injuries is really what we were talking about. The big business and overkill and overdo, both physically and mentally. So one of my passions is whether it's the family, the parents. I have a lot of guests on the show. We had contributors to #SportsParents, because the third section I brought together, Mike, 8 experts from youth sports nutrition to the mental game to training. Matter of fact, one of the members of the National Fitness Hall of Fame, Melissa Orth-Frey, who is a trainer of champion golfers and some other athletes, is I know we'll hear a dot, but it'll probably stop.
Yeah.
And Melissa was Missy, because Melissa was probably 16 or 17 years old when I saw her as a young superstar at Sports Fitness Institute with Gaida, and trained some of the best. She wrote the chapter on training the youth athlete and the challenges of specialization. So the point of the book also, though, is that it's an essential guide for any parent with a child in sports. We're not talking they've got to be champions and the best athlete and scholarship players. We're talking about, though, the traveling team player and the youngster playing different sports. You know, there was a front cover on Time magazine, Mike, 2 years ago. It was a little leaguer was on the front cover, great looking little kid, and the caption was "Youth Sports, the $17 billion a year industry." So the problems with injuries and the problems with crazy coaches, we talk a lot about it, and the physical side of, like the little leaguer whose his arm's falling off and too many pitches, to and there's a chapter in the book, Michael, it's called The Prodigy Sports.
Yeah.
One of my subspecialties is figure skating. The 2010 men's Olympic men's gold medalist champion, Evan Lysichuk, grew up in Naperville, Illinois. He was 10 years old when I put orthotics in his skates. So 14 years later, he was the best in the world. I'm still putting orthotics in 10-year-old skates last week. But the product, think of gymnastics, think of ballet, and even think of soccer and tennis, where you have 11, 12, 13-year-olds only playing one sport and all of those problems. So whether it's as a sports podiatrist, worrying about, no wonder your kid's knees hurt. You know that half the girls I see in sports, Mike, are knee problems?
Oh, wow.
Remember the song I sang you?
Yes, the next bone, right?
Yeah, foot type is inherited often. So many times we'll see, his daughter's got flat feet just like him and just like grandma.
Yep, me too.
And,
my dad.
the kid's bow-legged, just like his father or grandfather. So when you start throwing in sports with growing bodies at an early age, we can become susceptible to problems. And we talk a lot about your side of the world, which is your mental toughness and your whatever it took to be one of these people who lost, 200 pounds?
Yeah, just over 200, yep.
Right. The one in a million people who could probably ever get that done. So the mental game is, is a big part of the sports doctor, where we talk about all of these whether again it is coming back from an injury and having to deal with who knows how long it's going to be, or can I be able to make it back, or whether it is the other chapter in my book called Youth, Sports, and Drugs. Dr. Weil, don't you understand? My 12-year-old has basketball games all this week, and he's taking two Advil every day because his ankle's hurt. This is a big problem. So I mix it up, but right smack in the middle, you and I are in the same area.
Well,
again,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, we really, our main goal here is to encourage people a healthy living aspect, and there are many facets to what that means, and that's why I'm glad to have you here, because it's one of those things you got to have a holistic view of what it means. But just like we touched on a little bit on obesity and childhood obesity. I know that's another one of your passions. We
are still treading water. Ironically, I met the person. Well, I'll tell you people again. Who was able to solve the problem. His book was called Immunizing Children Against Childhood Obesity. Rick Osborne. Rick created what was called Pull Your Own Weight. If people go to pullyourownweight.org, the reality is that if a child can have the ability to do one unassisted pull-up, they can't be obese no matter how you measure them. We spent a million years trying to get this integrated in various areas or to get walking programs. But the obesity epidemic, whether it is the diabetes and the nightmare of diabetes in the adult population as well as in the youth population, we had to rename. You had to rename type 2 diabetes from adult onset to type 2 because they were seeing. So the question is, with all the great progress we've made, in so many areas, like there's a physical therapy group on every corner, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a gym on every third corner. There's so much attention.
Right.
People have been talking about it. Yet the facts show that with childhood obesity, we're in the same mess for the most part, and adult obesity is really no better.
Right.
And financially, this will break us. We can't afford to take care of all of these behavioral oriented and, back to podiatry. How important is your walking program for everything you're doing in this kind of a thing? And we're all, we're battling, the slowing down of the importance of PE in schools.
Right.
And, you sit down and say, what are we, crazy?
Right.
And again, who knows what your story is, right?
We'll find out.
You're going to be on my show with me in July.
Yeah.
The idea again of that whole world of.
You're right.
Were you heavy as a child?
A little bit. I mean, my brother more so. There is obesity in the family, but here's one of the things I've seen, and I mean, certainly genetics does play a part in it too, right? My grandfather was a very large man too, but then some of it is environment, in that we're living in an environment now that doesn't really lend itself to proper nutrition. A lot of the foods now are very low quality, very addictive.
Isn't that amazing?
Loaded with sugars.
That amazing, Michael?
Oh, it is. We're not selling nutrition. We're selling filler.
Yes. I think everybody knew, over our adult generation, we all knew that fast food was not good for us. We all knew that, and that's not a big surprise.
Yeah.
What we didn't know.
Yeah.
With the hundreds of nutritionists I've had on over the eons.
Yep. Yep.
What we really didn't know was, again, that the American diet, the good old American diet, was poison. We really didn't know.
No.
And now that we know that, that it's still such a challenge with the the advertising, whether I'm talking about advertising for drugs on television,
right.
which is another one of my big.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too.
We're one of only 2 countries in the world that allows it.
Oh.
New Zealand. When I have guests on from around the world, they say you people are nuts.
Yeah.
Or it's the advertising, which is legal everywhere, or the diet industry and the food industry.
Yep.
Now we need to understand that the kinds of stuff that you've learned, had to learn, and you've probably been yelling and screaming about,
yep.
Is the reality,
yep.
which is we have to be able to eat smarter. This is the new medicine, the
yes.
holistic medicine that I've talked about on the Sports Doctor for 30 years, give or take a few weeks.
Lifestyle medicine.
Yes, the new medicine really is eat smarter, number one, and keep moving.
Yeah.
And then somehow you find the niche, but you can't keep moving if your knees and your back and your feet hurt.
Agreed.
And you really can't. And for childhood obesity, when we would see young boys and girls who already their feet, ankles, and knees were bothering them.
Right.
Now, the society was trying to push these kids, you must be active.
Yeah.
Yet these kids were uncomfortable because maybe they were flat-footed and they were already 50 pounds overweight. So we had this horrendous challenge. My guest last week on the show, Sally Sampson, the creator of Chop Chop magazine, Mike, which is in probably 30% of the pediatricians' offices. And her whole thing is families and children learning to cook together and learning to enjoy eating healthy. And she's been on, again, the childhood anti-obesity for a long, long time. And sometimes when we then take a deep breath and we see, stat-wise, you're treading water is tough to take, even though I do believe we are really in this generation now of this is becoming very, very big new news, all of these things, and that I believe we're going to make tremendous progress. But man, it's amazing.
We're no lack of work here, and sometimes it feels overwhelming, and sometimes you feel like you're shoveling what against the tide, because it's just there's a lot of factors that work against us sometimes, especially in the fact that there's a lot of little devils in disguise here with some things that are masquerading as healthy.
Mental game is big.
Oh yeah,
mental game is big. I have psychiatrists on the show. I have psychologists. Many of them sports related, not all of them.
Yeah.
Dr. Denise McDermott is a child and adult holistic psychiatrist, and she contributed. I think her chapter was about exercise is such great brain medicine for kids. But again, into your world as a podiatrist, a sports podiatrist, if your listeners and friends and associates have chronic lower extremity problems,
right,
their back, their hips, their knees, whether it's arthritis in their 60s or so, or whether it's just people who have constant problems, if you have postural problems, pay attention to your feet.
Okay.
See podiatry. Understand whether it's what's the best shoe. Most of the people I see is orthotics.
Yep.
Custom prescription inserts, whether I'm putting them in an 85-year-old woman's shoes to try to do the best we can to prevent falls, or I'm talking about the young Olympic figure skater who orthotics were a huge part of stability, balance, edging. So when we see that we have, what are you talking about my feet, Dr. Weil? It's my back that's a constant problem.
Right.
And many times we're saying you want to pay attention to, whether or not that person has a high arch. And orthotics can be, even over-the-counter inserts can be helpful, like the Scholl's and some of this other stuff, and in running shoe, walking shoe stores. Almost always, if they're comfortable, could be helpful. But if you've got a history of problems, you want to include that in the repertoire, because sometimes we'll see that, Dr. Weil, we're both in our 60s and we like to try to walk every day, and my heels are killing me and her knees are bothering her. And we see that orthotics are magic for the both of them, along with, again, strengthening You mentioned teeter-totter boards.
Right.
You talked about imbalance. Every time you stand on one foot or you include that kind of exercise, every muscle in your body lights up.
Oh, wow.
Whether it's in your butt or your back or your feet or your ankles. So a lot of times, like thinking of a mini trampoline guy who used to talk about looking at it like a clock. And if you're balancing on your right foot at 9 o'clock, it's tilting you in and you're working all these stabilizers. If I move you to the other side, it's the opposite. We would make a very, very big deal about that, as far as the strengthening of the feet and ankles, and to take a serious look at that type of relationship, because the walking is one of the safest, most effective exercises. It has nowhere near the runners. Running's great, but 50% of people who run or jog have some sort of a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote an article in 2008. It's on my website, Michael. sportsdoctorradio.com is the website. The article was called Let's Get 'Em Walking. And it was, again, with the childhood obesity stuff in mind. It was an effort to try to get schools to just include as part of the curriculum, inside or out, no matter, from kindergarten to 12th grade, walking a half hour a day, along with any kind of sensible other kinds of eating and whatever. We could make such a big difference. But you know what it's like to get the schools to change things?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but the idea again of walking and the parents who can participate with their kids. This is a terrific participation scenario. It's a great habit to include, and it's one of the safest.
Right.
And cardiovascular wise, again, it's one of the most beneficial things you could do when we're talking wellness.
Right.
And we're talking about the only two things that people who are active care about for the most part, Mike. One, can you prevent injuries and keep me out of trouble? And number two, on occasion, hey, could I be 2 steps quicker?
Yeah.
Can I jump
funny.
higher? I mean,
Oh my gosh. Trying to get that edge, that performance edge.
When it's your son or daughter, and they're on a traveling team, and they might be quite talented, then those are the two things that are a very, very big deal to you. Again, which is trying to stay out of trouble because there's so much overkill in these schedules. This is a big problem. And we want to be able, if the kid is talented, to be able to, this is one of the big things that orthotics bring to figure skates is enhancing stability, balancing, edging. It's a big deal, but I am prejudiced.
Hey, I want to circle back real quick just before I forget. When you mentioned orthotics, is that something nowadays that most people's medical plans cover for something like that?
A lot of them do. Absolutely. Okay. A lot of them do. Blue Cross Blue Shield is one of the best, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is everywhere. But again, somebody might say, hey, look, it cost me $1,200 for a crown on my tooth.
Right.
And how come I'm complaining about something that might be half that amount of money? I have people wearing the same orthotics 25 years later.
Really? Okay.
Yes. The flexible plastics, I can give you a fast Hall of Fame story. I didn't have time for it when they introduced me. But I got Phil Clausen is the famous sports chiropractor who's a member since like 2009 of the National Fitness Hall of Fame.
I saw the name.
He's internationally worked with athletes in chiropractic. He was a 17-year-old whippersnapper on the Olympic team handball team when I saw him at Guida's Sports Fitness Institute in the late 70s, and we put orthotics in his shoes. He had some foot imbalances. So 2 years ago, I am at the National Fitness Hall of Fame, a celebration for Bob Guida's Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yeah.
And there's Phil. Hey, Phil, and a hug. Hi, how are you? And he walks away. For fun, I tapped him on the shoulder. He said, hey, man, how's your orthotics? He turns around. He takes his shoe off.
Oh, come on.
And the orthotics says Dr. Weil 1978 on it.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, there were two things that hit me at that second. One, no wonder I never made any money.
I was just going to say.
Never wear out. And two, Here's one of my most highly regarded sports scientists, Guide is still in his orthotics. So the when done properly, and podiatry really is the profession that specializes whether the job of the orthotic is to support your arch, whether the job of the orthotic is to take pressure off an area, your heel, the ball of the foot, etc., whether the job of the orthotic is to change the motion that's related to your son's shin splints or your daughter's runner's knee, et cetera, is where you want to be able to include that especially again, if you or in your family has a history.
Right.
You know, my mother always had foot problems. And,
right.
You know, she has arthritis, and I got the same. We might see grandma had bunions, the dislocation of the big toe and the bump. She's 70 years old, and her 50-year-old daughter and her 19-year-old daughter. So identifying foot imbalances early, Michael, is also important.
I can imagine, before it causes worse problems,
Yeah. So most insurance companies are involved in some way, shape, or form. Medicare, for the most part, is not. And custom orthotics are going to cost somebody $500, $600, $700.
But look at this guy. And how many years you said?
40.
Yeah.
Nickel a month.
Right.
Yes. But the concept is what's important.
Right.
Again, think of the foundation of the building and
Right.
think of the word alignment, and then it makes sense. And for the most part, when done properly, orthotics are one of our best weapons to enhance alignment. So Melissa Orth-Frey, again, another member of the Hall of Fame, I just mentioned to you, she wrote a chapter in my book. She was in my orthotics as a 16-year-old gymnast. Now her daughter is a 17-year-old figure skater. That we probably have in orthotics for a year or two. So we're playing it forward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, great. Now, this has really been great, Doctor. I appreciate, just your perspective on this. I think it's going to help a lot of folks understand, again, that holistic view. And I think starting right at, you said, at the base, right at your feet, is a great place to look for improving your health. So I really appreciate all the insight you've got. Again, they can reach you at
my website is sportsdoctorradio.com.
That's right.
And somebody can go over to radio shows, Mike, and they can go back 10 years and listen and look at topics and guests and pick and choose what they like. They could zip over to newspaper articles and read on every topic under the sun, in all aspects, again, of sports medicine, health or wellness, should your son specialize. And we have over 30,000 followers on Twitter. We educate a lot on Twitter. I can't tell you how many guests I get from Twitter at SportsDoc, DOC Radio. And, hey, good luck with your podcast. And again, my hat's off to you, what you've achieved. And I'm looking forward to you joining me. It's my thing. I like to trade radio shows.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it as well. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Mike.